Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the co-host of this show, and check out our archives. We've got some great episodes there, and we've got all kinds of interesting entrepreneurs and founders and executives that have been on this show. And of course, I'll introduce our guests in a second. But first, before we get to that, this episode brought to you by EO San Francisco, which is the local chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a global peer-to-peer network of more than 18,000 influential business owners of 200 some chapters all over the globe. And if you're a founder, co-founder, or owner or controlling shareholder of a company that generates over $1 million a year in revenue, and you want to connect with other like-minded successful entrepreneurs, then EO is for you. And the EO San Francisco chapter enables leading entrepreneurs in the Bay Area to learn, grow, and achieve greater success. And to learn how it works or to come to a test drive, you can join us at eonetwork.org/San Francisco. And this episode also brought to you by my company, Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses to get and connect with their dream 200 relationships and partnerships, helping them to run a podcast that generates ROI. And if you have questions about that, you can go to our website at rise25.com. All right, I'm excited here today. Our guest is Sarah Moody. She's a newer member of Entrepreneurs Organization San Francisco, but she's been an entrepreneur for a long time, and she recently pivoted her business. So we're going to talk about pivoting a business from something she'd been doing for a long time, about 20 years, shifting into something new. But Sarah, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And I always love to ask people about kind of their origin story, how they got into entrepreneurship. And for you, it was, we've heard this story before. 2001 was a bit of a nadir for many people. And you got fired from a startup and find yourself kind of dusting yourself off and starting over again. So tell us about what that experience was like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a pleasure being on your show, John. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in today. I'm excited to be here. So yeah, I grew up in a family of corporate bankers. And so the idea of being an entrepreneur was not really close in my mind and not really something that I saw as a role model. But I started my career in retail. And in my late 20s, I moved into tech. And I was with a big tech startup. And then I got lured in the dot-com era to a pure startup. And to make a long story short, in 2001, on a Friday morning at 10 a.m., I was fired. I got a call from my boss, and he said, Sarah, the company's imploding and you're getting fired. And I'd never been fired in my entire life. And my stomach just fell to the floor, and I immediately panicked and immediately was like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent? I live in San Francisco. How am I going to pay my car payment? Like, it was a gut-wrenching Friday morning. And what I feel so grateful for is I had these two incredible friends in my life. One was an entrepreneur, and then the other was a newer entrepreneur. Like, one was an older entrepreneur and the other was like a newer entrepreneur. And they both gave me advice that got me on this path. One was, hey, Sarah, you love to race vintage cars in Europe, in these car rallies. Think of this as a pebble in the road of life and drive over it. And I was like, okay, I got that visual. And then the other entrepreneur was like, hey, listen, you have such amazing expertise and network. Like, I was really, really good in product marketing. Like, why don't you just, I'll help you find your first gig. And within 3 weeks, I had my first client, and that was 2001. And it was incredible. But also too, like, just a quick kind of side note, I did think long and hard about going back into corporate America. But one of the many things I love about being an entrepreneur is this idea of flexibility and freedom. I wanted to be able to work with amazing clients in tech, doing product marketing, and then get on a plane and go and do one of my passions, which is driving vintage cars and rallies in Europe. So I love the freedom that we have as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And you also this is kind of crazy timing. You said you were laid off. It was a Friday morning, and you had prearranged plans to go to Park City, Utah to the Sundance Film Festival, which you love film. What was that like? Like, getting laid off and then having to like get back on your game and
Right?
go and enjoy yourself for the weekend.
Exactly. I went from that pit in my stomach of like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent? because I think I got like 1 month severance because the company was literally imploding. It was called Commerce One. And we got on a plane at 4 o'clock that afternoon, or maybe it was 2 o'clock to go to Park City. And because I was with one of my oldest best friends, it was just this like blanket of warmth. And she was such a big cheerleader of mine. So it was like cheerleading, blanket of warmth. And then I could get lost and forget all about it in like the world of movies and celebrities and stars for like 3 days in Park City. So
Mhm.
it was that kind of an experience, John.
Probably
Yeah.
helpful to get on a plane and get out of town and be able to enjoy something else. Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And interesting timing because I think they say that March of 2001 was kind of like the peak of the dot-com boom and the beginning of the bubble. And this was January 2001, so it was right as things were just companies were imploding.
Yeah. And I remember reading, I think about 2 million people were laid off at that time just in the US. So think everyone in Houston loses their job. So that was another thing that I thought in my mind as well. Like, okay, there are, so many people getting laid off in the Bay Area. Do I want to go and like compete for this job where I'm probably going to have to work 8 days a week again? Or do I want the flexibility? And I really got connected to my values and my why and what's important to me. And so that really helped me with the fear and the anxiety of not being able to pay my rent and just taking a leap of faith that I could do this.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of those early years, especially that year, because later that year, September 2001 was 9/11, and then the economy got even worse after that. What was it like for you, getting clients in this time period when it was so chaotic economically?
Yeah, what was really interesting back then was there was probably about like 2 or 3 years, maybe even a little bit longer, where companies were so gun shy about hiring FTEs that ironically enough, we had so much demand. We had a
Mm,
lot of demand for our services. And what I did for about 23 years was I worked with the C-suite of some of the largest tech companies on the planet, and I helped them build like customer advisory boards and executive engagement programs, everything around building loyalty and driving revenue using their customers. So for those few years, I was really blessed and I had good clients, paid well. I still had a lot of like internal, fear and anxiety. Like, is this gonna, like, is this gonna stay or is this gonna, implode again? There was still some of that. And so I still had to do some internal work around working around my mindset and my belief that, yeah, I can be really successful doing this. And so that took a couple of years and some more kind of proof points of more and more big tech companies hiring me to really solidify my place as like, yeah, I am an entrepreneur.
yeah. And then I imagine at some point you thought, well, it's just me. I need to bring in some other people to meet this demand. So talk a little about hiring people and bringing other team members.
Yeah, yeah. So what I did probably about halfway through my 20-year span in this space was I was working with companies like Hewlett Packard, for example, and they kept wanting to, exactly. I was doing great. I'm definitely an overachiever. And so I was able to bring in some subcontractors. So I started off with subcontractors and kind of having them on my team and having them underneath me. So my clients would hire a team of us to come in. And I'm really lucky. I live in San Francisco. I have an incredible network. I know so many people. So it was easy for me to be able to call some of my peers, get some of their team members who'd been laid off, or wanted to go off and just be contractors and not work full time in tech. And I was able to build a team pretty easily, actually. I think it helped that the work we were doing was really helping drive revenue and was, definitely something targeted to the C-suite. So my team could get a lot of visibility with leaders in tech. And it was fun. Like we would work with the teams that did all the logistics. And so, one of the many outings that we did, we built the C-suite board for Hewlett Packard, was the logistics team, not my team. We did like the content of the strategy. The logistics team organized us going to Nice and staying at the Four Seasons for the board meeting and then going to like Monaco and going to the Grand Prix. And so,
Wow.
there were, yes, the incredible work to build a board of the C-suite and build out the agenda and drive all the strategy back to the company, but lots of fun too with the logistics team. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see how it
And
wouldn't
no
be too hard to
lights.
sell a new hire on the
Yeah,
possibility of that.
exactly.
On the flip side, though, you have this relationship with the C-suite, and a lot of times what we hear is people struggle with the idea of, we've got these critical relationships with the clients, high-level clients, and the struggle is getting people who can replace you and have that stature and be able to manage a relationship of that level, of that caliber. How did you deal with that?
I found my clone.
Really?
So I had or I changed my entire business model 3 weeks ago, and I know we'll talk about that, but I hired someone who was my thought partner, my strategic partner, like the same level of experience, could, talk to the chief marketing officer and the CEO at Splunk just like I could. And so I was really blessed to be able to find a complete rock star to kind of be in the business with me. Yeah.
Mm,
I
yeah.
still in the business with CEO, but he was definitely my thought partner. Yeah,
Yeah. So finding someone who can kind of serve the same role as you. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about now? There's a long period of time, we're 20 years, but 2007 comes to mind, 2008, the whole Great Recession. You're about 6 years into the business at that point. Take us back to that period. Was that a big bump in the road for you?
You know, Fortunately, I'm just gonna have to say that again, like John, like fortunately, there was still we have so much innovation out here, so many companies that are just popping up left and right back then, that even though, overall the economics were challenging for our country, out here, I really think of the fact that we live in a bubble. And so I started actually working with a lot of startups, a lot of founders that, were working for Hewlett Packard and were working for some of the big companies that went off to go start their own small companies. A lot of them moved to Israel. And so I was working with like a lot of Israeli tech companies. So I shifted back then to the big guys as well as helping the little guys start to build up, customer engagement, customer loyalty, driving their corporate strategy, making sure they have a product market fit by bringing in their most trusted advisors, also known as their customers. So I was able to shift my business model to, address keeping my company thriving during those times.
Yeah. Of course, another big inflection point was 2020, when a lot of companies really struggled. March of 2020, COVID hits. Sounds like you're doing a lot of work all over the globe by this point.
Yeah.
Take us back to that period in time. What was that like for you? What was it like for you as you realized that this, pandemic, stay-at-home order, all that stuff was happening?
Yeah, yeah. My birthday is the day that the world shut down.
March 13th?
Exactly. Well, it's
Yeah.
March 15th. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I remember like going out to dinner with my sister on my birthday on March 13th and having this awesome dinner in Pacific Heights, and then exactly finding out that the world was shutting down.
Mm.
And I had probably about 3 or 4 really big tech clients back then. And so, we had a thriving business, and it, something inside of me just went to this place as the world was shutting down and we all had to stay at home of like, hey, Sarah, this could be your opportunity to also just drop inside of you and go deep and start doing some work inside, start doing some more work around your mindset. I definitely noticed that I would have phases of like being burnt out and overworked and super high stress. And I knew that because I saw a lot of other entrepreneurs, I knew that there could be a place where there could be a little bit more ease in my life. So in 2020, I went deep in cognitive behavioral therapy. I went deep in like just learning a lot about myself and knowing that if I went deep and learned more about myself, I could bring all those learnings and that confidence to, really taking my business to the next level. So I wrote a book. I started a podcast, and I started mentoring high achieving women in tech who were struggling with burnout. So that was what I was doing because we all couldn't go out. Um,
Mm,
so I started a part of my company that was a mentoring or a coaching practice.
mm.
And it was all about helping women see what was going on in their mind and how that was creating burnout and anxiety and overwhelm and keeping them really stuck in their roles and stuck in their life. And, just really helping them like with a big unlock and changing their mindset so they could really thrive at work.
And was there were there lessons or was there knowledge that came from the work that you did previously, the customer experience work that you'd done that you brought to that work?
No, I really just kept the mentoring of the high achieving woman as strictly around mindset work, strictly around if you don't have the right mindset, like give me your reality, like show me your reality, and I will know what's going on in your mind. So I really just stuck with mentoring, coaching, helping them with their mindset, helping them process feelings, helping them just be an example of what's possible. I mean, so many of these women, I just got a video yesterday from one of the women that I worked with last year, and she's a CEO and a founder of a health tech startup in LA. And her dream for her entire life was to go to Harvard, but she never thought it was possible now that she was a CEO and founder. And she just sent me a video yesterday from the grounds of Harvard, and she's doing her interview, and she crushed it. And so for me, 2020 was a year of like, how can I mentor and support women to really unlock their potential and just create an iconic life for themselves, professionally and personally?
So it was that I know you said 2021 you made a big shift in the business. Was that the shift or was there an additional shift?
No, that was one shift. So 2020 was one shift where I added that to my portfolio of services to my clients. And then in 2021, what I started noticing in tech was like a lot of people in my space, a lot of like FTEs in my space, a lot of service providers in my space. And so what I decided to do was think even more strategically about what I offered as a company. And it was combining executive customer experience or CX, which was still really hot in terms of the customer experience and how that correlates to net promoter score and profits and shareholder value and customer marketing. So I brought them together and I built out an overall strategy and set of programming and a team to go into big tech companies and do executive customer experience programs. So everything around the strategy that ideally the C-suite engages in to drive executive customer engagement. So it was a company-wide offering that I then went to companies with.
Mm. And was that something that again you're at the core of it, or is that something that you built out a team to for them
I,
to deliver as well?
I built out an incredible team to go in to mostly large tech companies and work directly with the CEO and the CMO, because really what we were doing then is changing culture, really moving from, so many tech companies live quarter to quarter, a very transactional mindset of like, let's close the deal, go to the next client, et cetera, et cetera. So really helping them shift from a transactional mindset to a value oriented mindset of like, what value am I bringing to my customers? And so there was a lot of culture change and
Yeah, and of course, this time period, 2021, people are still working from home. Even today, as we record this in 2024, a lot of these companies have got a weird hybrid model. So
yeah,
culture has changed dramatically, and so companies are having to adapt to that.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, we started doing that in 2021 and 2022, and that was extremely successful. And then, in 2023, I got really physically unwell. I was really sick, started the end of January. And, you know, I'd never experienced this level of illness before. And so it was like you hear that saying, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And it really was a year of of digging deep, of, trying to heal myself physically, but also, what do I want to do? You know, like felt so aligned with my passion and purpose when I was being of service to women for those, starting in 2020 and doing that for about 3 years. And I kept it small. And so I really just struggled with, what do I really want to do? Do I want to keep doing this big, world of tech and helping them drive revenue? Or do I want to go help the humans, like create an iconic life and thrive and love their career and their families and all the things and find love? And so I went deep spiritually. I did another level of healing. And in the middle of January of 2024, I made a big decision to close the door on a 7-figure tech business and go all in on helping women find love.
What sorts of things did you do? Like, are there resources? Are there books that you read? Are there podcasts that you listened to? Did you go on a retreat somewhere? Did you have a coach? Like, what were the resources you used?
So that's an awesome question. There were probably about 5 different things that I did. One was I hired a therapist and I used the healing modality EMDR, so eye movement desensitization therapy, and it's for PTSD. And it was invented here in San Francisco about 40 years ago. And now it's used like with the VA, and it's used by the police, and it's used globally as a way to, in one transaction, in one session, you heal your subconscious, you heal fears and limiting beliefs that are holding you back. So EMDR was one. The next thing that I did was what's called NSA, network spinal analysis. So think of it as like having a chiropractor who energetically shifts your spine and gets your whole energy and vibration like back in alignment. So it's really
It's like a
subtle.
super chiropractor.
It's nothing moves other than like light touch and
Hmm.
energy. It's one of the most healing modalities I have ever experienced. So I did that. Number 3 was I reconnected with my spirituality. I wouldn't, I probably broke up with like believing in a higher power, believing in God when I was about 7 years old. And I know exactly why I did it. And I actually used EMDR to help me clear that.
Were you raised in a religious household?
Was not. I went to Catholic school since I was until I was a teenager. But there was family stuff that really um that just severed my level of connection between myself and something higher than myself. And so I used EMDR to heal that. And I really then worked on deepening my spiritual practice, deepening my faith, deepening my belief, deepening my knowing and connection to myself and my higher power, whatever that is for anybody. For my sister, it's nature. For my best friend, it's, the divine feminine. For me, it's God, like whatever that thing is, like that has helped me so much, especially with like the big pivot that I've done in the last like 3 weeks.
And did you go back to the Catholic Church, or did you find
No,
a new spirituality?
no, I did not go, and I never really, even though I went to Catholic school, I would never have considered myself Catholic. Probably just more Christian. Yeah, I consider myself a Christian. Yeah, I live in San Francisco. Every now and then I go to Grace Cathedral, which is not far from my house. And to me, it's just, or even just every day, it's just, to me, what I do is I meditate. I drop in, I meditate, get really connected to myself and really quiet. And then I'm really able to listen to guidance that comes in. I believe that we're all energy, John. I believe that we're all connected. I believe that whatever we desire exists already in the universe. I'm a big Joe Dispenza fan. He's a doctor, he's a neuroscientist, he's a quantum physicist. So he's one of my teachers. And yeah, I hired a coach. I hired a coach. Her name's Brooke Castillo, and she's built a $60 million business. She's incredible. So coach, therapist, those modalities. I journaled a lot. I cried a lot. I had to do a lot. I had to do a next level of healing inside and and really knowing that I was very attached to certainty, which we all are as humans. So I really had to deepen that relationship with myself and feel the certainty from inside versus certainty outside.
And meanwhile, what's happening with the business as you're going on this journey? Is it continuing to operate?
It's operating, but thankfully it can operate and I'm already a high achiever. And so I wouldn't say it's like I'm not like closing deals left and right,
Yeah.
but like, if 2022 was like the top of the roller coaster, was like the
Yeah.
peak, in 2023, like we're on the backside.
Yeah. I mean, typically when you
We're
hear
like, yeah,
someone say that they went through a health crisis or they go through a spiritual crisis where that's taking a lot of their time, energy, and attention, then the business suffers, right? Unless
yeah,
they have amazing systems in place and it's kind of running itself.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that like the business went back in terms of a revenue number to where it was in 2020.
And so you come to this kind of epiphany.
Yeah.
Um, what happens next?
Well, I come to this epiphany and I immediately just feel like this is why I'm on this planet. This is why I'm here. I am here to be of service to women to help them find love. And it all happened around January 19th. So not even a month ago.
Everything in January with you. There's a repeating
Everything,
pattern.
I know, right? Everything.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
John, I got fired. I think it was January 19th, 2001, if that's a Friday. I got totally clear about this whole pivot and new chapter on January 19th, 2024.
Wow. That's crazy.
It
That's
is really,
crazy.
it
Clear
is.
your calendar for all future January 19th because big things happen on that day. I don't think you
Exactly.
should.
Things happen.
Yeah, you should not be occupied. Don't drive any heavy machinery on those days.
Machinery, exactly, exactly. But it was one of those things where like I was at this event with 40 women. And we, 95% of them were so just needed to believe in themselves and were just really struggling. And I was like, okay, this is my sign. Like, this is it. I have so much to share and mentor with these women. I can be of such great service. So I'm now, as of 3 weeks ago, my brand and company helps women, high achieving women, find their fuck yeah guy in 90 days.
I love
I
that. It's a great tagline.
I did it. It's really easy. I did it 2 years ago and I've helped so many women in love. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. So yeah, I do that. And then I have a podcast all about your iconic life and really, sharing stories from either A, my clients, or B, just women in all different industries about how they are, taking their life by the balls and creating an iconic life that they love.
Mm. I want to ask about kind of some of the advice you give to women when women come to you and they're struggling and what your like first pieces of advice are. But before we get to that, I want to
Yeah.
ask about, so you come to this epiphany, but you
Yeah.
got this business. Do you go back
Yes.
and lay everyone off? What is that like? What happens to the existing business?
Yeah. So everyone on my team knew what was going on in 2023 with me. They knew that I was about my house stuff. They knew what was going on for me in terms of the business and me struggling in terms of which direction I wanted to go in. So I consciously did not sign any new tech clients in 2023. And I worked with my team to, help them find new clients, B, help them, find full-time roles. And so I have this incredible team. And we literally were like a family. And so it was because we were so close and we'd done such amazing work together and we were all really vulnerable and real, like you could feel I am. It was a very collaborative, easy, genuine process done with a lot of integrity and love.
Because that is not an easy conversation to go into for many people.
And that's one of the things that I try and teach women as well is those difficult conversations, they're only difficult because we have this idea and construct in my mind that we think they're going to be difficult.
Mm.
But when we connect with our heart and we come at anything from a human, loving, kind, we're all humans, connected perspective, it's a very different conversation. It's
So
not difficult. It's probably love.
So I imagine that relates to the work that you do now. So what is the process like? Let's say I'm a woman coming to you and struggling with, finding their fuck yeah guy.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is your process? How do you, where do you start with them?
Yeah. So thankfully in 2020, I was building a lot of content. So I've got incredible courses. So what I offer is one-on-one mentoring with me for 90 days. Every week, we get on Zoom and we do all the mindset work we need to do. Number two, I've got courses. So I've got a course, the magnetic feminine. I've got a course called, the mindset fucking makeover. And I've got a course called Your Iconic Life. And there are modules in all of them. So there's all of my work is clearing out the subconscious of limiting beliefs that go on in women's minds of he's not available, he's not out there, I'm not young enough, I'm too overweight, all of the stories that we come up with. So it's one-on-one mentoring, it's cutting edge cognitive mindset courses and lots of exercises together. And then there's a whole spiritual component as well, just whatever that spiritual component means to my clients, they do that work as well with me.
I'm curious about this. There's certain businesses where, like to be a chiropractor, you don't have to have a bad back. You just have to help other people fix their back. To be a barber, you don't have to have the world's perfect haircut to cut someone's hair. But there are certain business, and for many years, you were in customer marketing. You were helping these big tech companies to acquire customers, to build relationships with their customers. But now you're in a business where, do you feel that it's that you have to like kind of walk the walk? Like you mentioned, you got a guy 2 years ago. Let's say that if you didn't have that relationship, would it be okay for you to be in that business? Am I making sense out of all this, or is it?
No, I mean, you're asking a great question, John. I'll give you my own personal opinion. My own personal, yeah, you can learn how to cut hair. You can learn how to like make, like whatever, make a
Chiropractic
leg.
adjustments or whatever? Yeah.
But I think this world of personal development and personal growth is a very personal experience. And for me, my experience is the coaches and teachers that I've hired have all gone down the journey and are a couple of years ahead of me. And so what they can do is they can bring a whole menu, like think of it as like a whole buffet of modalities. Like I shared 5 different modalities that I used last year, right? There are lots of different things out there. But what I found is I'm going to get the most success losing the 10 pounds from someone who's done this before, because everything is mindset as well as everything, the meal plan and all the things. For me, if a woman came to me and said, Sarah, help me find love and my fuck yeah guy in 90 days, and I hadn't done it, I wouldn't know that 99% of this is your mindset and feminine energy. I wouldn't know that because I hadn't done that. So my experience is the best with practitioners who've been there, done that, and have experience and can guide me. Yes, I can decide to do these 2 modalities and pull in something else that works for me. Maybe meditation doesn't work for me, for example. But I think the most alignment and the best results that humans will have is when they come to somebody who's been there, done that.
Well, as someone who has had more than one pivot in my career, I think it's amazing that, you've made this really major shift and that you're now pursuing something that really lights you up. And I can tell from your energy how much you enjoy doing it. And it's such a pleasure having you part of the EO San Francisco chapter. So Sarah, where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, they can go to sarahmoody.com, sarahmoody.com, and Sarah L. Moody on Instagram, Sarah L. Moody on X and LinkedIn.
Awesome, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me, John. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.